Hello everybody, in today's video we're going to be going over a sweeping snowstorm which is going to be moving from parts of the Midwest down through the Central Plains of the Great Lakes and then back through into the interior Northeast. We're also going to be talking about the current winter storms, one that's in the Midwest and the Central Plains as well as the Rockies, and another one that's currently in New England, where even areas closer to the coast, not immediately on the coast but close to the coast, are getting into some of that snowfall. We already have some reports of 8+ inches of snow in the Northeast snowstorm and over 2 feet of snow in some of the mountains in Wyoming from the other snowstorm. So here's what the current National Weather Service page looks like. You can see that we have some red flag warnings up for northwestern Oregon. We have winter weather advisories and winter storm warnings in effect for parts of Nebraska, Kansas, Colorado, Wyoming, and Montana. We also have some flood watches in effect for southern Louisiana, southern Mississippi, and southern Alabama. We have frost advisories in northern and northwestern Virginia. We have winter weather advisories and winter storm warnings also up for western Maine, much of New Hampshire, southern Vermont, parts of the Adirondacks, and then also into central and western Massachusetts. But if you look at the actual radar, it's not just the areas from central and western Massachusetts northward through parts of New Hampshire, Maine, and Vermont that are seeing the snowfall. It's also some of these areas that are west of Providence, west of Boston, that are also getting in on some of these snowfall, because we're seeing a very heavy band of snowfall that's dragging down a lot of cold air with it. It was able to dynamically cool the atmosphere down. So now these areas are switching over to snow, and I wouldn't be surprised if Boston in just a few minutes gets into some snowfall. If Providence, they might hold on a little bit more, but maybe in the next couple of hours gets in on some of the snowfall as that band heads further north and east. So a very interesting type of snowstorm. There were a few areas that underperformed, but there were also some areas that overperformed. So this is the area that's overperforming right now. The area that underperformed was southwestern New Hampshire, southeastern Vermont. They were expecting close to 8 inches, and they got mainly 4 to 6 inches, so still a decent amount of snowfall, but they did underperform a little bit, although as a caveat, it is still snowing in most of these areas. It is snowing also down right to the coast of New Hampshire and Maine, so Portland, Maine, Concord also getting in on some of the snowfall. Manchester, New Hampshire also getting in on some of the snowfall as well. So some of these cities along the coast and close to the coast are also getting in on some of the snowfall. Likely it won't switch over for the entire New England coast, although we're seeing some areas at least get in on some of the snowfall. Here's, as of 6 a.m. Eastern Time, the snowfall report. So this does not include anything that happened back through here or anything that happened back through here. Both of these areas are missing data, and also these areas are still missing some snowfall reports, because this again was updated at 6 in the morning Eastern Time. I'm recording this right around 12:45 p.m. Eastern Time. So this has been 6.5 hours where we've seen steady snowfall. So expect another 4 to 6 inches added on to most of these amounts right here. But generally, as of 6 a.m., you could see that we did get some snow in the Adirondacks, the Catskills, especially the northern Catskills, even back through some of the higher terrain in southern New York and northern Pennsylvania. We also got in on some of that snowfall, and again, none of this right here is completed just yet, and even the areas that do have snowfall reported right now is still going on with more snowfall. Again, this was only updated as of 6 a.m., so the snowfall reports are not in just yet, or fully in just yet. Here's what the current radar looks like for the Central Plains with that snowstorm, and you can see that in eastern Kansas and eastern Nebraska we have some rain going on, but it is snowing in parts of western Nebraska, western Kansas, and also a few snow showers still in northern Colorado, a little bit of Wyoming and western Nebraska as well. Some of these areas, if we go over to the snowfall map, did see quite a bit of snowfall. You saw some reports even going up to 2 feet of snowfall west of Denver right there. Also into central Wyoming, we saw some heavy amounts of snowfall. As you get right along I-80, there were also some high amounts in western Nebraska as well, and moving even through through close to Cheyenne, Wyoming. So some of these areas really had some quite high snowfall reports, and it did actually overperform in many of these areas out through eastern Colorado and also into western Nebraska. It played out basically how we were expecting in most of the rest of these areas, although if you live in this tiny gap right here, it did underperform for those areas just slightly. So here's what the European model is showing for this snowstorm that I want to talk to you guys about. This is going to be an interesting setup because it looks like we could be getting snow fairly far to the south, even areas that are into parts of Chicago, St. Louis, Kansas City. So a lot of these bigger cities, Detroit as well, and then back through Cleveland, Rochester, Buffalo, all those cities in the interior Northeast, the Great Lakes, the Central Plains, all those areas could be seeing some snowfall with this type of event. It's going to be a quick light snowfall, although some models have heavier snowfall, and we'll talk about that in just a little bit. The European model is one of the more aggressive versions of what's happening, but they all have a general idea of what's going to happen with a similar setup in general. So we have this first little area of snowfall up through the northern part of the United States and also into southern Canada. So this right here is going to be diving down to the south, and the reason that is because we actually have a high pressure which is back through here. So we have a high pressure that's going to be moving to the south and to the east. We're going to see that a low pressure is going to come out of the Gulf of Mexico, and it's going to start to move up the coast. And as it does this, both of these systems are going to converge over the interior Northeast and become one bigger system. Probably not going to lead it to too much in the way of multi-foot accumulations. I think probably most of your accumulations are going to be under 8 inches. Maybe a few spots get up to a foot, but it is still too early to speculate on total snowfall amounts. This is by late on Sunday. And you can see some snow back through the Dakotas, Montana, Minnesota, but it's still confined fairly far to the north. This is when it starts to transition further to the south. So cities like Minneapolis are going to start to get in on some of that snowfall, and even some lighter to moderate snowfall starting to mix in, even heavy snowfall possible in some of these spots. That line of storms just continues to head further to the south. So here's that line. By this point, your high pressure is now sitting up through here. So very cool temperatures, by the way, on the back end of the system. And if you look at yesterday's video, this snow event is actually what's going to trigger all that cold air to spill from Canada into the United States. You always need a cause for that to happen. So you can't just have it happen out of nowhere. Then that really never happens where you just get cold air out of nowhere. There's always an event that leads to it, and in this case, that event is going to be this sweeping cold front of sorts that's going to be moving to the south, bringing in snow and rain, depending on your location. Now, this is where it gets interesting, and where I have the most questions is over this gap right over Iowa, Missouri, northern Illinois, southern Wisconsin, northern Indiana, and also into southern Michigan as well. This area is where some models like the Canadian and GFS show maybe 1 to 2 inches, where the European model shows up to 5 or 6 inches of snowfall out of this event. So still very, very interesting, and there is still a lot that can change, and that's why we're going to keep you up to date with this. And I'm not going to put in any initial judgments on this in terms of my snowfall forecast until probably another couple days at least, when we get closer to this event and we get more information. So this is by Tuesday morning. Here's by Tuesday night. And this is the reason the European really bumps up the snow totals, because you can see that heavy band of snowfall right through areas, pretty much right through northeastern Illinois and central Michigan as well. That's why it has some of those heavier snowfall totals. I think if that band were to go away, those snow totals would maybe be just around 1 or 2 inches. So I am leaning to the GFS and Canadian model, but the European model is definitely not out of the question and is still definitely a possibility. This is when, and actually I want to go back one frame here. So let's go back a little bit just to discuss where the second low pressure comes from. So you can see you have that big high pressure to the north and to the west, and that's bringing in this cold front, which is set up right through here. So this is your cold front right there, and then we're going to see a low pressure come out of the Carolinas. By this point, it's right here, and it's going to move up the east coast. As this cold front continues to head further to the east, you're going to see these two kind of converge over somewhere right around here. It's going to produce a big wind event and also a fairly decent snow event for the interior northeast. So this is by Wednesday morning. This is something also that's very important. So you have a low pressure that develops up here. You have another low pressure that's developing out here. And the fact that this first low pressure kind of spawns up a little bit earlier is very important if you live in southeastern Michigan, northern Indiana, and northern Ohio, because that means that you're not just going for snow rates that are going to be maybe a quarter inch or half an inch of snow per hour. These snow rates are now getting up to 3/4 of an inch per hour. So you're getting almost double the snow that you would have normally got if this was maybe just formed 12 hours later. So very important, especially if you live in this area, on the exact timing of when this event, of when this low pressure actually forms. And the GFS and Canadian are later on that, therefore they have lighter snowfall totals. The European model is earlier on that, therefore it has some higher snowfall totals for these areas. Then over the interior northeast, not really the entire interior northeast. If you live up through northern New England, you're still getting hit with some rain, so it's mainly going to be western New York, western Pennsylvania, and mainly areas closer to the Ohio Valley that really get in on some of the snowfall. And then also if you live in southern Quebec or southern Ontario, be prepared for maybe a little bit of snow depending on the exact track. Now maybe if this were a little bit further to the south, then if you live in northern New York, northern Vermont, northern New Hampshire, northern Maine, you could get in on a little bit of snowfall, but as of right now that doesn't look to be the case based on current models, but of course they do change quickly. This is by Thursday morning. And you can see strong northwesterly winds wrapping in for parts of the northeast. So maybe even a lake effect event, believe it or not, for the northeast on Thursday. And it's snowing. It's now transitioned over to some snow in parts of northern New Hampshire, northern Vermont, and also back through upstate New York as well. And then that low pressure is really closing in on itself. You have that cold air wrapping in on the back end, and that's what's creating some of that snowfall. Here's the snowfall totals from the European model, and we do have to take this with a grain of salt, and really you want to cut out whatever happens here. This is not related, and also what happens back through here, mainly not related, although some of that is actually from this system. So both of those are from the two snowstorms that are going on right now. It's whatever you see in the middle that's the new snowfall. So look at the European model. It shows maybe 5-6 inches over a wide swath of Kansas, northern Missouri, back through Illinois, Indiana, Wisconsin, Michigan, Ohio, and then even back through southern Canada. But if we look at where, actually I'll kind of highlight this to make it a little bit easier. So this is the European model. You can see that it had the bulk of the snowfall right through here. Here's what the GFS shows, and you can see how not only is this pushed further to the south, but if you remember what the snowfall totals actually were, 4 or 5, 6 inches, or even up to 8 inches in parts of Michigan on the European model. Now we're looking at 2 to 4 inches at the most, and even some of these areas like Chicago are getting under an inch, where on the previous model that we just looked at, they were getting 5 or 6 inches. So a lot that is still up for debate. Some areas, for example, when the GFS does actually form the low pressure, and as that low pressure forms and moves up the Appalachians, that's when you start to get in on some of the heavier snowfall for southeastern Michigan, northwestern Ohio, northeastern Indiana, and also you can see that little heavier stripe back through the plains, but it's really cut out right in the middle there between Missouri and about western Indiana, where there isn't too much snowfall that's being indicated. If we look at the Canadian model, even more dramatic in terms of the gap in between these two areas. Look at that. We have close to no snowfall over those areas, heavier snowfall back through parts of the Great Lakes and the northern plains, some lighter snowfall back through the central and southern plains, and really not too impressive back through here either. So really nothing too impressive from the Canadian or GFS, but the European model is what's really kind of the outlier model as of right now, but we'll have to see if that continues to be the outlier model or if it actually starts to become more common within the rest of the models. Here's the upper air map. You can see that we have that northern shortwave trough, which is up through here. We have another disturbance down through southwestern Texas. We have a little blip in the jet stream right through here, where we have another little trough right there. And those are all the systems and kind of little storms that are moving throughout parts of the United States. And you can see that cold air, which is locked up through parts of the northern plains, and that's going to slowly be unleashed. So this is by Monday in the afternoon, and then here to be by Thursday. And you can see how both of these events, where you had that one system down in the Gulf of Mexico moved up further to the north, and then combined with the storm in the Great Lakes, how those two combined and they become a monster low pressure system. And anywhere that's north and west of, I would say, this line is where you would be seeing the bulk of the snowfall, and that's just based on the European model. Of course, every single model has a different solution. So I hope you guys did enjoy that. I tried to go a little bit more in depth on why this is happening and what's really causing it, and just let me know down below if you guys want me to be kind of more straightforward to what's actually going to happen, or if you guys like more of the breakdowns of what's happening. Also, if you have any questions on this event, I will be answering your comments. Usually I answer between about an hour or two of you posting it, and usually it is actually a shorter response time than that. So I try my best to get up to date with all of your comments. And again, if you have any questions, or you just want me to kind of clarify something, I will definitely be responding to you guys as quickly as I possibly can. So that is going to wrap it up for today's video. Please consider liking the video, subscribing, and turning on notifications, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.